Hello and welcome to Drive and Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan,
I'm Ryan.
and this is the podcast where we talk about two movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's episode, I want to talk to you about our Patreon over at patreon.com/Drive and Double Feature Podcast. We have a bunch of bonus episodes, and just for $5 a month, you get access to that and you help out the show. And you get to hear Ryan take some quizzes, me take some quizzes, some BuzzFeed quizzes. That sounds like fun. A lot of fun stuff going on over there. It's fun. As my favorite,
It
that's
sounds
one.
fun.
Yeah, that's my one of my favorite intros. Little that Ryan did, where he just kept saying, "It's fun. It's fun. It's a fun little place." I love that. Um, but getting into this Tuesday's episode, we are back on talking about Paul Schrader with Hardcore from 1979, starring George C. Scott. Is this have we talked about George C. Scott before? I think we've talked about him, but not a movie with him in it.
Is there? Hmm.
You got to look at his filmography
I gotta
really
look,
quickly.
but I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Okay, somewhere in there. But just like as a recap, Paul Schrader directed American Gigolo, which we covered on the show. But he's also really famous just for writing Taxi Driver. He directed Light Sleeper, which is one of my favorites, Autofocus, First Reformed. A lot of actually, it's funny. I watched an episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm today, and for whatever reason, they referenced autofocus, which I thought was a weird reference.
You did your finger point, like,
I think I did actually. I think I was because I watched the movie we're talking about today. I thought it was a funny coincidence. Um, but did you figure out what George C. Scott movie we covered?
no,
No.
no, I don't think we did. I don't
Okay.
care.
Well, George C. Scott is just one of the great actors, very prolific actor. His most famous role is probably Patton, I would say, because he did win an Oscar for that one. But I also think about God, Doctor
Doctor. Sh-
Strangelove. Yeah, no, he's great. And I think whenever I first learned of this movie, Paul Schrader is one of my favorite directors, and I really like George C. Scott. I heard they both did a movie together, and I went and watched it about 4 years ago, and really enjoyed it. And this is my second time watching. And I think you've seen this one before, right, Ryan?
yeah, I'd seen it probably like 10 years ago at this point.
Okay, cool. So it was kind of almost like probably a fresher experience.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember the beats of the story, but it more of the nuances is like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm recalling this now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And honestly, if you've seen a Paul Schrader movie before, you should already know some of the beats that this movie goes through, because that man likes to redo a lot of themes, thoughts through like his other movies, and you'll see them all scattered around. He like there is a scene, like I always talk about it, the ending with the glass and two people looking at each other. This scene has a talking scene through glass. Not in the same context as a jail, but through a peep show glass.
Yeah, I mean, they were doing something pretty wholesome, I think.
Yeah, they were getting clues to find this guy's daughter.
They were making a nice connection. It was just two people having a nice, fun, informative conversation.
Yeah, I agree. It really moved the plot forward, and that's all it was
Completely,
there for.
completely necessary.
Yes, exactly. That's what's nice about his movies. All the sex scenes are necessary. I mean, especially when it's the point of the story. So, Hardcore is about a father who sends their daughter to Knott's Berry Farm on a road
You-
trip. Oh,
oh well, you forgot to mention the movie starts during Christmas. This is a Christmas
it
movie.
is a Christmas movie. I actually forgot about that. Yes, it's snowy. It's Christmas time. It even has a scene of a family sitting around and watching a Christmas show on the TV.
Yeah,
Um,
and then the person goes, "I had enough of this crap."
I'm done with TV. Yeah, because I guess this is a family of like hardcore religious people, Calvinist, which connects to Schrader because that's what he was as a kid, and First Reform. That's the same church that's going on there, so it all comes around. But hardcore religious, and I guess the daughter who doesn't really get a character. She has barely any scene. She gets sent off on this trip, And once she's out of the movie, like she's what we think or what the father thinks kidnapped, she's gone. We only
Yeah.
see glimpses of her.
Yeah, and it's thanks to this movie that I stayed away from Knott's Berry Farm. I
I
mean,
know.
I
I
just
know.
somebody invited me over to Knott's Berry Farm, and I'm like, I've seen the movie Hardcore. I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah,
You're not going to trick me.
I want to ride the white knuckler so bad, but I do not want to go to Knott's Berry Farm. I know what happens to young impressionable people
Oh.
there. Yeah, no, I will post a link to that meme in the because it's funny. It's funny. I was on Reddit and I saw that you posted the meme that you created on there. I made sure to give it a nice upvote. So
Oh, thank you.
yes, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Please check out my Reddit account, please.
Yeah. Oh no, I did not. I did not dig any deeper. But yeah, so that happens. She gets kidnapped. George C. Scott ends up going to LA to figure everything out, and the cops aren't going to help. And he goes down a rabbit hole, and he has to hire Joe. So this connects to the Joe Cinematic Universe, the
Oh,
JCU.
yeah.
You looked at me like, "Who's Joe?" I'd
Well,
have to say Joe Mama, but
I was gonna I had to think like, was this character actually named Joe in this movie? Because it might have been, and
no.
but then
Well, I don't think so. It's Andy Mast. Yeah.
wait, no, it's not. Is it?
Yeah, it says Peter Boyle as Andy
Oh,
Mast.
I was thinking of a different character.
Gotcha. Oh, but yeah, so the private detective
No,
Peter.
it was Joe.
No, it was. I don't think so. But Peter Boyle is playing a private detective in this movie, and come to find out, probably in this movie's biggest scene, at least the scene I think of, is Peter Boyle is like, you got to come to this porno place in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Get over here fast. And he has like a reel of tape, and he's like, I got to show you this. I'm not going to explain what you're going to see here, but I'm going to show you this. Plays it, and George C. Scott has to sit there, or I should say Jake Van Dorn, that's his character's name, has to watch his daughter in a sex film. And he's like, oh God, he's crying, just turn it off, turn it off.
It's probably I actually really like. I mean, I know it sounds funny, but well, it's not really funny. But
It's
like just
not. It's not.
but I really I what I was going to say is I actually do I like George C. Scott a lot in this scene. So
No,
like
I agree.
when I that as a whole, I mean, it's like this movie, like George C. Scott really ups this movie. Like
Mhm.
you like it. I mean, it's no secret, or that George C. Scott is an incredible actor. But I
No.
think for me, a lot of times it's like I always remember like, yeah, he's good. But then like when I watch a movie with him in it like this, and you're just like, oh wait, no, he's like really good.
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. He's fantastic. And I really like him in this movie because he almost feels uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like a role that he would take, right? Like, because he is surrounded by naked women, sex, like it's a very depraved setting, because gets deeper and deeper into the world of like 70s pornography. And it's almost like he doesn't need, like, the two worlds would never clash, and he's like uncomfortable. And I think that he really sells the role. I think picking him, probably one of the best picks they could have gone for. And do you know who was originally supposed to play this role?
uh Chevy Chase.
Not Chevy Chase, but that would have been great too. I would have loved it. No, Warren Beatty was originally supposed to play this role. And he was originally hired and tried to convince Paul Schrader to make it not his daughter but his girlfriend. And I guess Paul Schrader said no, and they got in fights, and eventually
I
it went to George C. Scott.
Wait, Paul Schrader didn't get along with somebody? That doesn't sound like him.
No, it doesn't. Which
Uh,
is funny because he didn't get along with with George C. Scott at all during this movie either.
I wish they wouldn't give Paul Schrader such a hard time. Why do people have to be so difficult? He's such an easygoing guy.
Yeah, it's almost like he's a difficult man, but he's not. No.
No.
George C. Scott, I guess, reading quotes, he said that he called him, "You're a great writer, but you're shit at directing," which is
Well,
funny.
yeah, and that's like allegedly like George C. Scott was like so fed up with the whole process that
Mm-hmm.
he like locked himself in his trailer and he's like, I'm not going to come out unless this man promises he's never going to direct another movie again.
Oh boy.
And
And
he never did. He held
yeah,
up his end of the bargain.
yeah. What, he made Blue Collar and this and called it a day.
Yeah, didn't make any other movies.
Thank God. But no, in all honesty, this movie, it's a great movie if you're into the type of like movie where it's like about a lonely guy and just a really messed up world, and it's a detective movie at its core, like almost like a private detective. He's bumbling around, but in a very seedy world.
Yeah, but
Realistic.
yeah, well, I mean, he's kind of having to take this matter into his own hands because Peter Boyle was hired to be the
Mm,
to find his daughter, and he's like, oh yeah, well, if you give me this money, I'll find her, no problem.
mm-hmm,
And then he does, and after he shows him the video, he's still waiting around. He hasn't heard anything from Peter Boyle in a long time,
mm-hmm.
so he goes over to his apartment, finds him like sleeping with like I guess it's a prostitute, or maybe I
I'm
don't
not
know, but
sure.
it's some woman. He's like, and he's just like, what are you doing? He's just like, I'm working, this is research.
Yeah, and I love the bit where he's like, "Get out," and Peter Boyle's like, "But this is my apartment." He's like, "Get out."
He's like, all right, all right.
Yeah, I know. He listens, but yeah, he's just fed up with it. And there's just that really long scene of him going from, he's like in some red light district, and he goes from like place to place, and it's like, a massage parlor type deal, and each of them have like the same spiel, which I think is funny, where it's like, oh, this is female wrestling, and you're gonna go in there, you're gonna lay down, it's gonna be touching, but you can discuss whatever happens further whenever you get into the room. And it's like the exact same thing they say in both different places.
Well, there's one that's funny because it's like these two Hispanic guys walk in there, and
Mm-hmm.
they're trying to have a conversation with like the girl there, and he's like, and he's like, he doesn't know the
Yeah.
word, and he did, so he does the universal symbol for sex, which he does like
Yes.
the finger into his other hand, and he's just like, and she's like, oh, sexo. He's like, see,
Thanks. So,
sexo.
yeah. And I like the thing that George C. Scott's just standing there taking this in, just watching them do this.
well, like, well, I mean, he does get a girl to. He takes a girl into the back room, and
Mm,
he's more interested in finding the info of what this girl knows because he doesn't
mm,
know what the hell he's doing because he's like, well, I got to find my daughter myself. So he's asking these. He's just walking into these places that may or may not have any connection with her and
mhm.
with his daughter, and just like, do you know where my daughter is? And then she's just like, no, man, I don't know where she is. And then she just starts taking off her shirt. And
Mhm.
he's just like, he sees her topless, and he's just like, ugh, like disgusted with her.
Yeah, and that happens so much in this movie of him just being disgusted by like what he's surrounded by. Um, but yeah, he just has this picture of his daughter, and he's asking around, and it gets so deep to the point where he meets up with a guy named Ramada, who is like a porn director, a porn producer, and he tries to set something up, and then Ramada's like, no, you need to finance it yourself. And I think it's absolutely insane that Jake here, okay, yeah, I'm gonna make a personal ad a wanted ad in the newspaper. I'm gonna have a roll call, and he wears the fakest mustache and wig, and he pretends to be a porn
And
producer hiring people.
that's like my favorite part of the movie
I know, me too.
because he's so looks so ridiculous because he's just like, just imagine George C. Scott with like bangs and like curly hair and a huge mustache, and has like a tie-dye shirt on.
Yeah, no, and I love this whole bit because he's just getting all these people in, just a whole bunch of different guys, and he's not hiring anybody. But I love the part where the guy's like, he's like, we're not what we're looking for, and he's like, well, do you at least want to see my junk? You want to see my stuff? And he's just like, fine, show it. And he just looks disgusted staring at this guy naked.
Yeah, he's just like, and but the whole point is he's trying to find the guy that matches,
The
like
guy in
that,
the porno, yeah.
right? And the big gag with that scene, at least, is like this. The only reason I say this because it's two white guys are in the video or the movie,
Hmm.
and so then this large black man shows up, and it's just like, I'm big dick black, just like, and then just like right away, he's just like, yeah, you're not what we're looking for. He's like, why? Why is that, man? You're racist or something? He's like, no. He's like, and he like this guy like starts going through like his entire resume and like his,
Yeah, it's like
it's like,
filmography.
it's like it's like, man, I could please a woman for hours. Like I'm never. I can do it 10 times in a day. Like it's like I'm every
Yeah.
woman's dream.
Hey, he was selling himself, man. But no, instead, the guy he's looking for is named Jism Jim. So, I don't know if I need to censor that or not. Uh, we're gonna call him JJ. Shows up and he's like some scraggly, freaky looking dude, and I love this bit because Jake is the kind of character who's kind of like reserved, but when he gets really angry, he gets angry and he beats the crap out of this guy and gets him in the shower and tries to like figure out where his daughter's at. And that's how he gets even further down the rabbit hole.
Well, I like that scene too because
Mhm.
like he's passing all these guys, and I guess he's
Mhm.
been doing holding this audition for so long that other people in the porn community are catching on. They're like, we heard that you're not even like
Mhm.
giving out these roles. And then when he actually sees Jim here, he's just like, actually, you're exactly what we're looking
You're the
for.
guy.
Yeah, and she's like, hey, really? He gets all happy,
Yeah.
and then he shows him a picture of his daughter. And he's like, no way, man, that chick's crazy. She did all
Yeah.
kinds of.
That's right.
Yeah,
He's
that's
like,
when
"Oh
that's
yeah, she's a freak, man. I never work with that freak again."
yeah, that's when he loses it,
Hmm.
and that's I guess because he does that, he I guess they are aware of his existence in the porn community because
Hmm.
uh, eventually Peter Boyle like does run into uh, Jake again, and he's just like, hey, I kind of heard, you're making some waves, and then like there's a guy like an ugly guy that he just made him even uglier or whatever something.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, you busted up his face, but luckily they're not looking at his face.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what happens is, Jake kind of goes rogue from the world. He like leaves his church to go on this like adventure. I wouldn't really call it an adventure, but he leaves it all behind, and his brother-in-law decides to
Hmm.
rehire the private detective, and Peter Boyle is trying to kind of protect him from this world because it does gradually get darker and darker because he does run into Nikki, who is a sex worker, and she knows a little bit more of what might have happened to the daughter, so the both of them team up to go looking, and it kind of leads him into like BDSM and then finally snuff films like 8 millimeter kind of deal where he's getting into the darkest parts of the world.
Yeah, it's like really disgusting stuff. Like he's like he has to watch like a girl get murdered in a movie because
Yeah.
that's like a whole big thing, like in I guess. And then the he does eventually run into I can't remember the character's name, but it's the not Todd, but it's the somebody else. But it's like the guy that's like it was like the purveyor of that snuff movie
Oh, was it
because
Rattan?
that's it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wait, was it Rattan? Because
uh
didn't he say like he's like rattan? What is that? Like some kind of chair?
Yeah, but I think that was like a ploy, right? Like, oh yeah,
Oh,
Rattan doesn't exist. I don't know who Rattan is, but I sure can get you some stuff.
oh yeah, and but anyway, he tracks him down to this BDSM club or whatever. They're chasing each other and they're literally just smashing through walls. Like they're jumping like because these walls are just like like cardboard or plaster or whatever, and they're just like
Hmm.
and they're just like,
No,
ah.
it's so wild, that scene, because there's like slow-mo of them busting through the wall and there's like a lady screaming in the background. But where it's slow-mo, it's like so deeply pitched. It just sounds like the most like exactly. No, that's what it sounds like. Yeah, it's so funny because you think one time they're gonna bust through a wall, right? Nah, they bust through another wall, and you're like, okay, two walls, that's enough. And I think they bust through four walls in one action scene. And this is where it really draws in, like it feels like the ending of Taxi Driver, kind of in a like a big like finale, like where everything comes together and it ends in violence in a way. Um, yeah,
Yeah, but just really creative
yeah.
scenes like that. It's like because you wouldn't think like to even shoot something like that. I mean, you'd kind of expect maybe to like he goes around and asks a lot of questions or like he kind of but then you wouldn't expect like an action sequence like that.
No, you wouldn't, especially not with George C. Scott, because he's looking old. He's looking like an old man in this one, but he's still working. Um, and like you said, there's a lot of creativity here. I really like the color usage. There's a lot of greens and reds and scenes, like because
Mm-hmm.
they're going to red light districts, and there seems to just be a lot of like different colors, and there's a lot of lighting like that. And, I'm trying to think because he gets out. That's right. He breaks through the wall and he actually finds his daughter somewhere, and that's where I think like the
Well,
movie. Oh, go ahead.
oh wait, are you talking about when he finally runs into his daughter? Well, because
Yes,
he goes back to Nikki
that's right.
and I
Yeah.
and he and basically like Nikki's like he finds out like she's been holding on to some information
Mm-hmm.
regarding like where his daughter is because she's like, well, if you do, if you find your daughter, you're just gonna leave me because
Mm-hmm.
Jake's been paying her this whole time, and it's like the most money like she's ever made in a week or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and
Because it seems like she's giving a lot of money back to her, like her family back home.
yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
that those clubs that she was working at, they take the majority of that
Yeah.
money anyway, and anyway, like T-Base is like, no, I promise I'll take good care of you. Just tell me where my daughter is after slapping her in the face. So it's like,
Yeah, it's just like the scene from Drive, throws her on the bed and just slaps her. Um,
yeah. But yeah,
and
then that's where he does can find where his daughter
Yeah,
is.
and I will say I'm describing the plot. I skipped over Nikki, but Nikki is actually a really important part of the story. I actually really like her character because they both talk about religion, and he actually talks a lot more about his beliefs, like predestination and stuff. And she's just like, I don't get it, but she seems to find more commonality between them than
Yeah.
he would not want between them. And she starts to make sense that they're kind of more common than you'd think. And he's very much like, no, we are not similar.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're kind of like what I do really like their conversations that they have because they
Mm-hmm.
do go into sex and what they think because he's very old fashioned conservative values with sex where
Mm-hmm.
it's just like sex. I mean, I don't think he outright says it, but I think he's more of like so like sex is just for procreation type of
Yeah.
thing. This is not a something that should be done for fun. And but she's like been so desensitized to sex. She was kind of relaying, it's like, well, we're
Mm-hmm.
not really that different. I mean, you don't like sex, and because you think it's immoral, and I don't like sex because I've had so much sex, it's not even a big deal anymore.
Yeah. And I like that. I like that scene a lot, actually. So like that's what makes it even more painful because by the end of the movie, he's like, I won't forget about you. And he ends up realizing that there is nothing he could do to save her, that she's so deep in that she cannot be saved.
Yeah.
But he finally does meet his daughter, which is it's really interesting to me because the daughter almost she's the point of the plot, but we know nothing about her. So he meets her, and immediately you're gonna think like, oh, I'm saved. That would be the normal movie, like thank you for saving me. But she's like, no, I don't want to be saved. I'm happy. At least at first, she's like that. And she's just like, you never showed me love. I didn't even know you cared about me. And he breaks down. He's just like, I was just so old fashioned. I didn't even know how to share that I loved you, but I care for you.
I mean, I don't mind the ending, but I feel
Mm-hmm.
it's a tad rushed, like to
I could
that.
see that. Yeah.
to get to that point. I mean, it doesn't deter the quality. I mean, this is me just being nitpicky more than
Hmm.
anything.
Hmm.
But I guess I would have, because we don't, like you said, we don't really. At least I didn't really get the sense of that at the beginning of the movie. Like they had like this strained relationship or
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
And but she felt really strongly about this. Or it's just like, you never gave me the love and attention that I deserved, and
Hmm.
this where I've been for the last couple of months. Like I've never felt more loved and appreciated before, and
Yeah. And that's why she
so
got drawn into it. I guess, yeah, I thought about that too. I was because I've been bringing that up that like she's almost like a non-factor in this movie. We don't really know anything about her in the beginning. But I actually want to say that because the main actor, Jake, or, the main character, Jake, doesn't know how to share love, that we don't even know anything about her because we're kind of in his shoes. Like, it's almost like, why does he care now when he never really did care before? Maybe that's what he's trying to relay. But I guess it does make the ending kind of it does make it feel a little odd that she's like letting out like, oh, I never realized you loved me, I don't like you. And it doesn't feel like, it just doesn't feel like I understand completely.
yeah, I don't know. I think like it gets, because we don't really know of that issue,
Hmm.
and I think that would have been fine, but it gets resolved in like one conversation.
Exactly. it's
Yeah,
it's like, yeah, it's one scene, he's like, oh yeah, I messed up, and then she's like, just go, and he's like, are you sure? And she's like, no, I'm coming
yeah,
with
like
you, you
yeah,
saved
never
me.
mind. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you're terrible, you're awful. I don't want to see you ever again. Are you
Yeah.
sure? No, actually, I want to go home with you. Like,
Yeah, maybe the the pessimist in me or something just like, maybe I would have liked it better if she was like, she did go, no, I'm not coming home with you, and he had to leave empty handed. Maybe I would have preferred that.
so I mean, I don't know if you read, but there was an alternate ending to the movie, or like
I
a
did not
plan.
read that, no.
Yeah, there was like an alternate ending. So I
Mhm.
mean, supposedly, and Paul Schrader had one ending in mind, but studio heads kind of pressured him into changing it. But he was going to have the daughter die in an unrelated car accident. Like that was going to
Jesus Christ.
be like the big twist is like he found out like she died, and that would, it would just be like this super downer note. And
Hmm.
I don't know, like I'm really curious to see how that would have been done, because I was like, I mean, he wouldn't have got his answers. He wouldn't have got like the whole
Hmm.
big thing. But I'm very curious to see how that would be.
Yeah, that actually sounds kind of interesting because that would even make more sense to like the beginning, not really knowing her. If it's just like, oh yeah, she died, and your whole, and it wasn't even related to pornography, so your whole quest is just pointless, and that's really depressing. And this movie's
Yeah,
already quite depressing.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I don't. I did, like I said again, it did not deter my feelings towards the movie. Like, yeah, I would probably still, I still have the same feelings, but I would have liked to have had a little more exploration
Mm.
in terms of the reasoning.
No, and I totally get that.
Yeah,
But we both own this on Blu-ray. Did you get a chance to watch any of the special features for this one?
I watched two of them. Well, I because I started listening to, there's like an interview with Paul Schrader, and I was like,
Hmm.
oh, okay. But then I realized it was like the entire feature length.
Yeah, I
Uh,
realized that too. I clicked it and it was like, oh, it's like a commentary track, but it's an old interview. It felt a little odd, so I was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to listen to this for now.
yeah,
Mhm.
but I did watch the shooting of, which I don't know who that was. They didn't did
I
they
think
didn't show,
it's a cinematographer.
was it okay?
Yeah, except
Um,
he expressed more disappointment over the film than anything. He seems like, oh, I can't objectively look at that movie because I guess he had like a different. He wanted to film it like a documentary, which is kind of a wild idea.
yeah, well, they were wanting to film it like a docudrama type of thing, where
Yeah.
it's like, I guess, like you said, like a mockumentary, where it's like
Mhm.
it's filmed like a documentary, but it's like, but they're like, we realized we couldn't have George C. Scott like
Yeah.
and a weird movie like this.
Hmm.
So, but you know, he seemed very dissatisfied with like the whole movie.
Hmm. Yeah, and then there was one I didn't get to watch. Did you get to watch the one about the musician for this movie?
Yeah, and I watched it because it was like a 20-minute excerpt of another movie called The String Men,
Okay.
and all of the parts I did see, it was just like the other musicians or listening to the score of the movie, and they're just like, "Oh yeah, yeah, this is good. I like this."
That sounds so awful. And I mean, I like the score of the movie. It's kind of funky. It's a funky soundtrack.
Well, I got about like 3 minutes in. I'm just like, what is this? And I just
Yeah.
like,
It's like a clip from another movie.
yeah. And
Interesting.
but then other than that, I don't think there was anything else other than like a trailer and like an image
Yeah.
gallery or something.
No, because actually Kino Lorber just released a Blu-ray for this movie. When we got the Indicator one, and the Kino one has a lot more special features and commentary tracks. So maybe that's the preferred version for getting this. So, which I'm interested in seeing that.
Well, they'll have to do it on the Movies with a Kino podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one for each of the boutique labels.
Yeah, they have a podcast for each boutique label, but
Uh-huh. But
uh, but but no, as a whole, I really like this movie a lot. It's very, very, very good. I could see how somebody may not like seeing some of the imagery in there. So, if there's obviously it's set in the porn industry, so you can kind of guess what you're going to be seeing a lot of in this movie.
yeah,
But if you can get past that, it's very, very good. I liked it a lot. One of my
no,
favorites.
I agree. I love this movie. It's just it has a great central performance. It's depraved, but not like in like a glorifying way. It's depraved in a very depressing way. And just a lot of cool imagery. And just like you said, don't pick it up if you're not interested in the topic because you're going to go a lot of sex in this one. But if it sounds somewhat interesting to you, you'll have a really great movie. So, yeah. But I think that wraps it up for today. But Ryan, what are we going to be covering on Thursday?
Well, Nathan, this is going to go on with our wrestler series because we talked about victims first through ninth,
Yes.
from the victim
I'm
series.
so tired of these movies.
So we're going to be talking about the final movie of the series, which is called The 10th Victim. And
Really?
that
They
one,
changed up the title from Victim
yeah,
1, 2, 3.
yeah. But
Wow.
so it's the 10th one. So it's
Mhm,
that,
mhm.
but I don't think they made any more after this. So this is the only one. But anyway, that movie is free right now on Tubi.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited to watch that one. But if you want to send us an email, you can email us at driveindoublefeaturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also subscribe to us on YouTube, check us out on Spotify or Apple. You can also you can also X at us over at x@DIDFpod. But until next time.
Until next time.